And today we're going to continue on with the Legend of Creation. We're going to see how many chapters we can get through today. First four is what I'm aiming at. So we'll see what we can do. Chapter one, The Invitation. In the depths of the 40-year-old financial advisor, Derek Dickerson woke up realizing he desperately needed the toilet. Slowly, he slid out of his bed and pointed his well-known towards the bedroom door. An uninvited spider snarled at him as Eric unwittingly tore into a fresh web the hairy arachnid had just finished stringing across the door. Dropping to the floor, the spider waved a leg angrily at Derek and scuttled off. Derek shrugged and lightly tiptoed to the bathroom to answer the call of nature. Deciding against flushing, not wanting to wake his pregnant fiancée, he washed his hands, dried them on a towel, and looked into the mirror to pose. Derek froze with terror. In the mirror, a second face looked back at him over his shoulder. Derek felt full force of appreciation and trouble. The hairs on the back of his neck stood to attention like rows of soldiers as he heard his name. Derek got up and tried the word. Derek Dackerson, you need not be alarmed. Regaining control of his senses, Derek grabbed his toothbrush, spun around on his heels, and found himself staring straight into the eyes of Zodiac Pebblesworth. How'd you get in my house? He added in one long word, waving his toothbrush at the intruder. Zodiac smiled. Derek Dickerson, I am not here to hurt you. I bring you a message from Mother Nature. We have been watching you for a long time. Mother, who? Watching me? Mother Nature. I'm here to ask that you assemble your cycling team. Now, what do you call it? Ah, yes, Team Cogs and Clocks. Confusion overwhelmed Derek. Lowering his toothbrush, he could now see that the figure was entirely solid. It shivered. Are you a ghost? Did I just die? Zodiac looked at Derek sympathetically. No, Derek, I'm not a ghost, and you are very much alive. Derek Dickerson sat down heavily on the side of the bath and rubbed his bloodshot eyes. What do you want with Team Cogs and Clocks? Zodiac shimmered and floated towards the very much alive Derek. We want you to race, he replied as he placed a warm finger on Derek's forehead, sending him towards the bathroom floor and into a deep, beautiful sleep. The next morning, Derek opened his eyes to a pair of feet with brightly painted toenails. He worked his way up towards the very bemused face of his fiancée, Hetty. What are you doing on the bathroom floor? She asked. Derek sat up and looked at his fiancée with a confused look, then leapt up and ran down the stairs, dashing from room to room looking for any sign of a break in. Derek, said Hetty, what's going on? Derek turned towards his fiancée. I had a bad dream, I think. What time is it? And then he spotted a golden envelope lying on the floor in the middle of the room. 2 o'clock, replied Hetty. What's that? Derek picked up the golden envelope and turned it over in his hand. On the back were written two letters, M. What does that mean? Mother Nature, muttered Derek as he opened the envelope. Is it a rainbow of colors poured from the envelope, lighting up the room? As a spectrum of color permeated the room, a feeling of calm found them both. Most importantly, a feeling of trust. Inside the envelope, there was a gold-braided note with instructions. Derek was filled with hope. After such a long string of bad luck, he knew what he had to do. He picked up his old brick mobile phone, with all it could afford at present, and dialed. Later that evening, inside the Crank and Bracket cycling club, Dean Cogs and Clocks assembled, having received instructions to meet Derek. Sitting around a long table, the group of would-be professional cyclists chatted amongst themselves. "Well, what do you think this is all about?" asked a voice belonging to a tall, lanky man. "I don't know. It sounded urgent," replied another voice. "Tell you what, though, I've not heard from him this agitated for quite a while. Well, not since the financial crash, when all those pensioners stationed down the high street with their umbrellas," talked the third voice. "He had to go into hiding for a month when all those funds simply disappeared." There was a collective laugh as they all recalled the incident. Derek Dickerson was actually a very good financial advisor, but it all had gone a little pear-shaped after the Champagne disaster. He was a high-flying, top-of-his-tree advisor to the very wealthy, and he had amassed an impressive portfolio of many expensive cars, quality being favored. A collection of houses, a batch of mill chicks, and a little hen house. Well, he was a simp. And one night, someone knocked over a bottle of champagne at a party, and it leaked onto his famous Mathematica calculator. The very next day, on learning about the impending financial crash, Jared made a few calculations with a very drunk which spewed out sporadic in a rush to move funds around. He used the data calculations, and well, the rest is history. No more than a few days later, Jared had lost all his houses, his cars, his chicks, and all. However, over time, Derek slowly managed to rebuild a small part of it. It was a long, tough road back. He was still a long way off from where he wanted to be. His house in New 45 bore witness to that. The door creaked as Derek entered the pub, and the chill of the late December air stole in like an uninvited guest. He quickly slammed the door shut and looked around. Bracket cycling pub was busy for him. He knew the yellow Tour de France thing hanging over the fireplace, and the posters out the heels and other famous climbs on the wall. Was very beyond shade, which wasn't hard as he towered over it by 6 foot 8 inches. He was sitting down, he looked like he was standing. His then 43-year-old frame and thin thatch dominated the table. Next to him sat Bernard Bianchi, no relation. The youngest of the Cogs and Clocks. He was wearing a baseball cap back to Barnett Diablo directly adjacent, Helen Collins collision, trained chef and Austin Potter, the man with an internal GPS, were talking between themselves. Stanley Cogsworth, the team mechanic, had zapped his bottom with the world's biggest hit. He couldn't stay long. Jared noted an empty chair. Evening out, where's Reginald? It's full mood, said Jerry. Oh, Reginald Wolf believed he was a werewolf. Rolling off his bike, smashing into a car one wet afternoon, while waiting for a triathlon, he woke up with a sleep. He was not an unfortunate side effect of this condition was that whenever there was a full moon, he would stalk sheep on the moors or hunt chickens, much frowned upon by Derek. The evening usually ended with Reg wearing nothing more than a pair of old underpants, big shelter, scary wolf hat, becoming a guest of the local constabulary. It was no different tonight. The blue line had just picked him up and was currently in scout at the police station across the road. Police were becoming accustomed to his behavior. They thought he was harmless, as he never really endangered anyone or anything. The call came in that a man wearing a wolf mask was terrorizing sheep on the moors. Police were happy to accept the call, but he called out and offered them a brief respite. After caution at the station, Reg was once more let loose into the night. The weather had turned for the worse that evening, where the rain streamed sideways along the road, fueled by a strong wind that had come from nowhere. The church as the wind blew rain up his trouser legs. He dashed across the road, stepping on puddles and dodging the flash of passing cars. I need a drink of red there. Yeah, I should do that. Nope. I don't even know why I bother drinking that stuff. It's just coffee, but it doesn't help. Hold on. Okay, the weather had turned for the worse that evening, and the rain streamed sideways across the road, fueled by a strong wind that had come from nowhere. Reg cursed as the wind blew rain up his trouser legs as he dashed across the road, stepping around puddles and dodging the splash of passing cars. Finally making it to the door of the prank and bracket, he pushed it open. Woo! He howled as he entered the establishment. Finding Cogs and Clocks, he trotted over, stopping briefly to admire the blown-up picture of Mont Blanc hanging over the fireplace. Then he smiled when he glimpsed the piece of burnt toast he had smuggled in and pushed behind a vase on the mantelpiece. It was a social experiment to see how long it would be for somebody to notice it. It had now been 4 months. Evening, Mr. Wolf, replied Derek. Good hunting? Reg placed himself next to Barry on a long settee he fixed against the wall. Not really. Thought I was about to catch a chicken when I was stopped in my tracks by a double-barreled shotgun. Really? Derek said, starting to snicker. He was the king of crap one-liners. Shoot away, then. What happened? The farmer thought I was a fox, and he almost blew my face off, said Reg calmly. Derek's face dropped at the thought of such a hideous act. Blimey, Reg, you really need to be careful. What would have happened if he had pulled the trigger? Reg appeared unfazed by his near-death experience. Well, I guess I'd be dead now, he replied as he helped himself to a crisp from a packet on the table. Yeah, and then we could have had a wolf pie, said Colin Collinson with a sly grin. Derek shook his head in amazement and stared at Reg, munching on the cheese and onion crisps. Reginald Wolf was short, lean, and over 40. He had very little hair on his head, and amazingly, he had a wife and two beautiful little wolf cubs. Mrs. Wolf had long ago decided he was a little odd and often random, which, luckily for Reg, she found captivating, even though she would never let on to Reg that she did. Now then, said Derek firmly, getting his head back into the present, let's get down to business. What did one plate say to the other? It was a collective sigh as everyone stared at each other. Even though Derek had lost everything, his humor was still intact. Teams and Clogs leaned in. Lunch is on me, he guffawed, leaning back and wiping tears from his eyes. Once he had pulled himself together, Derek dropped into a more serious tone. I came across a cycle race that I believe you'll find very interesting. Yeah, what kind of race? Said Colin, chewing on a breadstick. Derek's face twisted as he deliberated what to say. Well, it's a race with a difference. Sounds a little ominous, said Austin. Derek nodded in agreement and thought about the visitation, considering whether he should tell them or not. He concluded very quickly, thinking, nah, I'm not telling them yet. After all, what about the golden envelope? Yeah. After all, what about the golden envelope? What could they make of that? He smiled at Austin Potter, the oldest member of Team Cogs and Clocks, who was nudging the dreaded 50. Austin was the team's navigator. He liked the old-fashioned way of doing things, but on a recent training mission in Mallorca, where he had a half-ton of math stuffed into his back pockets, the team had still managed to get lost. The senior rider reluctantly borrowed a satellite navigation system and clapped it to his bike. But he found the process of staring at the bloody thing distracting. A few days later, while out on a ride, Austin was struggling to read the small screen in the glaring sun. Unfortunately, he was hurtling down a steep descent at the time, and in a lapse of concentration, he forgot about an impending sharp right-hand bend. Unluckily, Austin flew off a cliff and landed in the sea. Sal was that. I can talk. I swear I can. The satellite navigation system reacted badly to the salty seawater and began to short circuit. The surrounding liquid became violent as bubbles crashed over Austin's head, and the GPS device exploded, sending pieces everywhere. A tiny fragment from the GPS receiving unit penetrated Austin's ear and lodged deeply in his head, fusing onto his skull. When Austin was finally rescued after his so-called teammates had stopped laughing, and he had fully recovered, he was left with the unique ability of knowing exactly where he was and where he was going. He had become a human navigation device, displaying unnatural abilities. Austin would read a map, calculate the route, and then set off, never ever getting lost. His sense of direction was now legendary. Derek slurped his beer and smiled to himself. Austin was so right, ominous was the word. Colin swallowed the remains of a pork pie he had hoarded and muttered, So what do we have to do to enter? Derek looked a little worried, but simply said, We have to meet at the cliffs of Flamborough Head in 2 days. Barry was the first to speak. Why Flamborough Head? Burying my lanky beanpole of a friend, said Derek. I honestly have no idea. Chapter 2, A Leap of Faith. It was early morning when a battered blue Yugo 45 spluttered and backfired into the car park by the lighthouse on the cliffs of Flamborough Head. An environmental disaster of smoke billowed from the car's exhaust, causing serious offense to the local wildlife. After shutting down the engine by opening the bonnet and disconnecting the battery, Derek decided to take a short stroll in the morning sun. The burning orange ball of fire was now above the horizon, its flaming eyes scorching its presence into Derek's conscience. The view from the cliff tops was impressive, and the weather, strangely for England, was near perfect. Derek smiled when he thought how pleased Barry would be with today's cloudless wonder of a day. It was around 8 in the morning. Derek, dressed in his team Cogs and Clocks cycling gear, a blue shirt with a picture of each team member plastered on the back and the word Kushti emblazoned on the front, inhaled the fresh morning air. After a couple of minutes, he returned to his tatty old car and removed his beloved hot rod, his Bodhechia bicycle. Honk of a car horn sounded the arrival of Barry Bianchi as he pulled into the car park and his Focus and parked up next to the battered Yugo. Unfolding himself from the car, the lanky beanpole cracked his head on the doorframe and cursed. He too was dressed in the team cycling top. Morning, Derek, said Barry, turning to his very cheap bike rack on the roof of his car. Morning, Mr. Bianchi. Barry swore again and then cursed even more as one of the clamps on the locking mechanism securing his Q Bagri racing bike had seized. Bravely, Barry climbed onto the sill of his car, and then panic seemed to envelop his body. Watching with an amused grin, Derek called over, You okay, Barry? Only you're shaking like a leaf. Locking mechanism. It's stuck, said Barry. Derek observed Barry's legs trembling. They were knocking like a couple of woodpeckers. Are you sure that's the only problem? Barry's knuckles were now turning white as he clung to the frame of his bike. Well, I don't like heights, he stammered. Barry calculated the distance between Barry's feet and the ground. You're only a few inches off the ground, he said incredulously. I know! Can you help me down? Sighing, Derek helped Barry down from his door sill, and while Barry sat on the ground taking in deep breaths, Derek stepped back onto the sill and freed the seized locking mechanism, gently lifting his cube to the ground. There you go, mate. With color slowly returning to his face, Barry looked up at his friend. Thanks, Derek. Could really do with a bite to eat. Apart from fearing heights, Barry was also always hungry, very hungry, a fact belied by his slim frame. There's a cafe over there, said Derek when the thought crossed his mind. Hey, wasn't Wedge coming with you? He was, but he wanted to go hunting, and he said he would meet us here, said Barry, surveying the car park. Hell, his car's over there. Look. He spotted Reg's black Corolla in the corner. A burst of movement in the long grass caught their attention. Hey, Reg, is that you? There was a snort followed by a loud "Awoo!" The two friends nodded at each other in recognition before heading over to the cafe to wait the rest of the team, Cows and Clocks, to arrive. 20 minutes later, Bernard Brianchi and pulled it into the car park in a shiny brand new Volvo, followed by Austin Potter. A few minutes later, Stanley Cogsworth dropped into the car park in his Skoda. The trio unloaded their bikes from their vehicles and started to prepare for the bike race. After checking over his Bianchi bike, Bernard turned his attention towards his catapult, the latest Barnett Diablo slingshot. Firing a couple of ball bearings towards the sea and nodding his approval, Austin was riding around the car park in circles on his track, trying to establish a GPS connection, while Stan, full of nervous energy, was spinning his rear wheels, checking the brakes, and shrieking, Woohoo! Every couple of seconds. He always got a little overexcited when teams Cogs and Clocks got together. After fitting his front wheel to a specialized tarmac, he started cycling behind Austin around the car park. Derek and Barry wandered out of the cafe, saluted their teammates. Derek realized someone was missing. Oh, where's Colin? It was another honk of a car horn, which made Derek jump as Colin pulled into the car park and wound down his window. Sorry I'm a bit late. Been a busy day at work. I see. Do know you're still wearing your chef's hat," said Derek, motioning towards Colin's head. Colin nodded. "Yeah, what can you do?" he said as he wound up his window and pulled on the handbrake. Getting out of the car, Colin lifted down his bike frame and started putting it together. Derek sighed. Collinson was a good chef, but the sight of him piecing together his Planet X, his chef's hat bobbing in the breeze, well, it just wasn't right. He sighed again, wondering if all of this was just a mad dream, and then spotted something else. "Barry?" "Brr." "Yeah," replied Barry. "Would you please fetch Reginald from the grass?" Minutes later, Reg was standing proudly next to his blue giant bike, and the team Cogs and Clocks was finally assembled. "What a fine bunch of men!" exclaimed Derek. Feeling proud that his team looked almost semi professional, he pulled out the golden envelope. "Oh, what's that?" asked Reg. Derek grinned. "This, my hairy friend, is our ticket to the race." And slowly he opened the envelope. Sparkles in a spectrum of colors bursted from the envelope like an erupting volcano, shooting over the edge of the cliff, forming a rainbow road that led towards the open sea. Teams Cogs and Clocks looked astonished. "Woohoo! Let's follow the rainbow!" cried Stan excitedly. "It doesn't go anywhere other than towards the sea," said Austin, looking thoughtful. Derek mounted his metal steed. "Come on, let's have a look." Team Cogs and Clocks rode out of the car park and headed towards the lighthouse on the cliffs. Pulling up at the edge of the cliffs, Barry was instantly filled with fear. "Derek, there is no way on earth I'm going any farther." The Rainbow Road did not stop at the edge of the cliff. It carried over the edge for about 100 meters before plummeting at a 90-degree angle into the sea. But before it hit the water, the Rainbow Road distorted in a shimmering vortex of light. Derek could feel the eyes of his teammates burning into his skin. "What's going on, Derek?" Bernard commanded as he flipped his baseball cap back to front. Derek squirmed a little as he unfolded the golden braided invitation from the old envelope and began to read it aloud. "Says we are to take a leap of faith," said Derek, which was followed by a chorus of "What the fuck?" followed by "You're fucking kidding." It was time to come clean, so Derek sheepishly revealed his visitation. "Well, never had you down as being mad," said Reg, which was somewhat surprised Derek coming from him. "Look," shouted Stan, "you can stand at the rainbow. It's solid." Stan took a few steps out from the cliff edge and was soon joined by Reg and Bernard. They continued to walk for about 20 meters and then stopped and stared down at the rocks below. "So, what do you think?" asked Stan. Bernard stamped his foot down hard. "Well, it feels solid." "Yeah, but for how long?" said Reg as he adjusted his lycra shorts. The three teammates made their way back to the cliff. "I will tell you right now, there is no way I'm riding onto that road and into whatever that shimmering white thing is," said Bernard sternly. "I don't like heights and I don't like falling." Jerry mused for a moment before replying, "Barry, my dear friend, you get nervous on a curve." Team Comical Clocks erupted into a fit of nervous laughter. Even Barry found the comment funny. "Thing is," said Colin, "what's the worst that can happen? We all get very wet." "Oh, it's a hell of a big drop into the sea, though," said Austin. "It looks about, well, 50 meters." As the members of Team Cogs and Clocks debated the situation, nobody noticed that Stan had mounted his carbon frame rolling machine and was riding towards the Rainbow Road very, very fast. Stan was extremely single minded, and once he had decided, that was it. There was no turning back. Stan had decided to throw all caution to the wind and take a leap of faith. "Woo-hoo!" he screamed. "See you on the other side. Well, if there is one." And the lycra-clad cyclist stormed past the rest of his teammates, who were standing like statues with their mouths open and wide, except for Reg, who was sniffing the ground. As he hit the Rainbow Road, everyone watched as fear and excitement engulfed their thoughts. A second later, Stan reached the end of the multicolored highway, paused in midair like a cartoon character, and dropped towards the simmering vortex of light that sucked him in. Derek, the first to react, ran to the edge of the cliff. Dan! There was no reply. Team leader surveyed the calm waters, but he could see no trace of his teammate. He turned back to the rest of his team, who all, except for Reg, who was now back in the long grass, looked astonished. An anxious silence filled the air. No, no way am I doing that, shuddered Barry. Doing what? Asked Reg, who had rejoined them. Following Stan. Reg commanded. Reg looked around. Why? Where is he? A common sigh filtered through the group. As per usual, Reg was oblivious of what was going on. Mr. Wolf, Stan has gone and taken a leap of faith, said Derek. Reg looked thoughtful for a moment. What? Without me? And before anyone had time to react, he swung his leg over his giant and accelerated towards the Spectrum Road, howling as loud as he could. Seconds later, he too dropped off the edge and into the shimmering vortex with a quiet pop. Austin Potter twisted his little round glasses and acknowledged a GPS signal that suddenly appeared in his head. Derek saw the little glint in his eye and knew instantly that Austin had made up his mind. Mr. Potter, are you taking the leap of faith? Austin nodded and turned to Bernard. Are you coming, mate? Bernard shrugged his broad shoulders, scratched his thinning hair, secured his Barnett Diablo, adjusted his baseball cap, which was really a bag helmet, only shaped like a baseball cap, and said, Let's ride. And the two friends trundled down the ridiculous road, and they too fell off the edge into the vortex of shimmering light. Well, when in Rome, said Colin as a wave of bravado shot through his body, do as the Romans do. And with that, the chef carefully mashed his Planet X onto the impossible road, stopping halfway with cramp, stretched it out, and then fell over the edge into the vortex with a wooden spoon protruding from his back pocket. Well, just you and me now, Mr. Bianchi, said Derek. Sweat was pouring off Barry's head, and his knees began knocking again. I can't do it, Derek. I just can't do it, he quivered. Derek smiled. He knew Barry's weakness, but Derek held an ace. Well, it says here on this invitation that the organizer will grant each participant one wish. I do believe you would like a decent pay rise. Like ice cream to a screaming toddler, the magic words bounced around Barry's head as he muttered the words, pay rise, and instantly stopped shaking. How much? He asked as color slowly returned to his face. I really don't know, but I can't imagine it would be substantial. Barry Bianchi worked as an air traffic controller, and he had not had a decent pay rise in years. When you say substantial, are we talking double figures percentage-wise? Derek beamed. Mr. Bianchi, I really couldn't say, but it does say any wish will be granted. Barry pondered this for a moment, and then nodded as Derek said, but put this blindfold on, and I will guide you. Barry felt a little uneasy. I really don't know about this, he said hesitatingly, but reluctantly placed the blindfold over his eyes. Ready, Barry? Absolutely not. Derek grinned as he gently guided Barry towards a leap of faith, and together they slowly edged forwards. I don't like this, shouted Barry, his voice rising. I don't like this at all. And his legs began to shudder like a couple of jackhammers. Yeah, where am I? Barry, this might help. Derek cleared his throat. What bow cannot be tied? Barry waited for the punchline. Who knew it was going to be bad? A rainbow! Cried Derek and burst out laughing. Get it? Barry appeared to chuckle, but his knocking knees soon drowned it out. Derek had to think fast. You're doing great, Mr. Bianchi. Think of that pay rise. And again, as if like magic, those wonderful words, pay rise, bounced around in Barry's head, calming him down as Derek led the lanky beanpole towards the drop. A couple of minutes later, Barry piped up. Up until we fall! Derek looked over the cliff edge to the white swirling vortex about 50 meters from the edge. Oh, quite a way yet, he lied as he gently rolled the two of them off the edge. The first thing Derek noticed after Barry had stopped cursing was that they suddenly decelerated when they hit the swirling vortex. A blinding white light then engulfed the riders, leaving them with an odd feeling of isolation. The rainbow road rapidly faded and the vortex folded in on itself. Vanishing with a sound, a couple of seconds later, Derek and A stressed out Barry appeared from another vortex and gently floated out, landing softly on a perfectly cut lawn in what appeared to be a gigantic garden. Woo-hoo! What a rush! Cried a very hyperactive Stan. Let's do that again. Derek was greeted by his teammates, who enthusiastically patted each other on the back, the adrenaline from the ride to the other side clearly having an effect on everyone. Is everyone okay? Asked Derek, scratching his nose in wonder. That was mad, said Bernard. I got a cramp, announced Colin. Woo! Howled Reginald. Austin was grinning like a Cheshire cat. I have a fantastic GPS signal. It's so clear. Derek nodded and knelt down by the stricken Barry, who was sprawled out on the lawn. He unfastened his cycle helmet and shook him. Are you okay, Barry? Barry murmured and slowly opened his eyes. Wide awake yet, eh? He said to Derek, shaking his head. Derek looked a little guilty. My lanky old friend. It was the only thing I could think of to make it easier for you. Not knowing when we were going to fall was surely better than waiting for the fall. Barry sat up and groaned. I suppose you're right. This pay rise had better be worth it. Derek smiled and helped his friend to his feet while looking in awe at the garden around him. The scenery was outstanding. Team Cogs and Clocks was standing in a beautiful, huge, and perfectly square garden. To the north and south of the garden, sheer rock faces reached up to the sky like jagged fingers. To the west was a fence that, when they leaned over it, they could make out a rectangle shape far below that appeared to disappear in both directions. And the sheer drop, which appeared to be bottomless, was enough to steer Barry as far from the edge as possible. Strangely, the temperature, even at this height, appeared to be optimal, neither too hot nor too cold. In the northeast corner of the garden, about 100 meters away, stood a simple little cottage within a clearing of trees. A staircase hewn out of the rock led all the way up to the house. And to the east, just below the cottage, two large black shiny iron gates were standing wide open at the entrance of a country road that was arched with overhanging foliage. A golden letter was attached to each gate. One had M and the other an N. A large banner was hanging over the gate. On one side, the word start was written in bold black letters, and on the other side, it read finish. M, mumbled Derek. It has to be Mother Nature. Indeed, that is correct, said a strange voice from behind. Derek spun round with reflexes of a cabbage on steroids and stared into the smiling face of Zodiac Pedalsworth, who was wearing an identical Team's Cogs and Clocks cycling top. You, cried Derek. It was you, the ghost. You're that bloody ghost. And Derek prodded him to make sure he was solid. Zodiac smiled, didn't waver as he stepped back and addressed everyone. Welcome, Teams, Cogs, and Clocks. Welcome to the Ledge of Creation. It was a sudden silence. Where? Asked Colin. The Ledge of Creation, replied Zodiac, feeling a little lost for words. He hadn't been expecting a hug or anything, but a hint of excitement wouldn't have hurt. That vortex thing brought us here, right? Said Austin. Yes. Zodiac's smile began to fade. And where is here exactly? Stan spluttered, hopping on one leg. Zodiac pointed upwards, and as Team Cogs and Clocks followed his gaze in the direction of his finger, there was a collective, wow. Is that what I think it is? Said Bernard. Planet Earth. Yes, it is, replied Zodiac. And this is the ledge of creation, right in the middle of heaven and earth. His voice then dropped to a whisper. This is where the real magic happens. Noticing a large flat rock, Reg trotted over to it, sat down, and proceeded to howl like a wolf. Excuse me, one moment. Derek detected an odd look flicker across Zodiac's face. Don't worry about him. He had an accident and cracked his head. He now thinks he's a werewolf. Reg stopped howling, dropped off the rock, and proceeded to sniff the ground, slowly shaking his head from side to side, eventually reaching the dumbfounded Zodiac. Have you any sheep here? Reg inquired. Zodiac was lost. Sheep? Yeah, fluffy things. I like to chase them. And chickens. Are there any chickens here? Sensing the confusion, Derek interjected. So, Zodiac, you said something about a race. Zodiac watched as Red trotted off back to his rock and started howling again. Is he all right? Yeah, he's fine, just a bit odd and a bit random. But I do believe he is sane. No, just a bit odd, mumbled Zodiac, completely astonished by Red's. I hate when they stick. Here we go. The race, Zodiac? Derek reminded him. Zodiac collected his thoughts and brought himself back on track. Ah, yes, the race. Mother Nature has instructed me to organize the Ledge Classic 500. You will race as Team Cogs and Clocks against Team All the Gear and all the ladies' team Lipstick and Shoes. When does this race begin? Said Barry, rubbing his stomach. Oh, in about 3 hours. The other teams are already here. Really? Where are they? Said Derek, pondering if they had arrived by the same wacky vortex. Zodiac smiled. They all arrived about the same as you. They're in the garden out of sight, with, they turned to Derek, their own ghosts. Derek shuddered at the memory of his first meeting with Zodiac shimmering in his bathroom. He stretched out a leg and stared at Zodiac's cycling shirt. So, as you are wearing a Team Cogs and Clocks shirt, I have to assume you're riding with us? Your assumption is correct. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, but why? Said Derek as he wiped his sunglasses clean. Hell, I'd like to ride. I'm very competitive. Okay, but what about her? Said Austin, admiring the fine form of a young lady who was walking towards him. Zodiac turned and introduced his fellow companion. This, my new friends, is Constella Chain Set. Every member of Team Cogs and Clocks suddenly stopped whatever they were doing. It was stopped doing whatever it was they were doing because it suddenly became unimportant. Even Red had stopped howling. Constella Chainset was the most beautiful woman they had ever seen. Her blonde hair shone in the sun, and as her slender figure sidled up to Zodiac, she straightened her perfectly ironed pink riding top and matching pink riding shorts. The preparations are complete, Zodiac, she said in a soft, honest voice. Thank you, Constella. Please let me introduce you to King Cogs and Clocks. Constella eyed the drooling men in lycra, whose mouths were hanging open and wide, and purred. Very pleased to meet you. Team Cogs and Clocks melted into a bucket of testosterone. Glad meet you. Glad, yes, thank you, muttered Barry. Constella giggled and Reg howled very loudly. 2 hours later, Team Cogs and Clocks were mingling with the other two teams in the preparation area. The area was buzzing with anticipation as the cyclists attended to their bikes or attended to themselves. Different types of food stalls were giving out food and drinks. Barry had already been to the food stall twice, and the toilet 3 times. Many of the administrators were milling around. They all seemed to be enjoying the atmosphere. Derek and the cycling warriors had met up with the 7 members of Team Lipsticks and Shoes, and as Dredge had commented, they were very nice. Their team leader, Misty Blue, had shown them her specialized Amira sport bike. Stan was so impressed that he did 50 press-ups and 18 sit-ups. Laura Hourglass had a twinkle in her eye as she attended to her giant NV Advanced, and as Reg also had a giant, he gravitated towards her, and then howled. Surprisingly, Laura howled back and grinned. They also met the lovely administrator, Starlet Baring, who was a brunette version of Constella and equally as eye-poppingly and jaw-droppingly gorgeous. She was riding with the women's team. At that moment, Team Cogs and Clocks became distracted when they heard a small, skinny man sporting a greasy black comb-over shouting commands. Standing with his cycling helmet under his arm, the small man bellowed, Team, all the gear inspection! 7 identical cyclists in identical clothing dismounted to the left of their bicycles, saluted, tapped their bright white cycling helmets on their cloned heads. The team wore bright white tops with bright white shorts and matching socks and shoes. Emblazoned in red on their shirts was a large letter A with a little G just underneath. Team's leader left the line and began an inspection of his men, clearly annoyed that he failed to detect any faults. Agitated, the unspotted Team Cogs and Clocks and strolled towards them, his expression weasel-like. Clayton here, captain of Team Baldigear, he remarked, slivered off his greasy tongue. Derek stepped forward and held out a hand. Derek Bakerson, Teen Cogs and Clocks. Clayton stared at the hand out. Clayton stared at his outstretched hand with utter disgust and stepped backwards, putting his own hands behind his back. Indeed, you are, he said with a bitter taste before continuing. Ah, yes, Teen Cogs and Clocks. Interesting name. Do you yourself or something? Do you time yourself or something? And is time an issue with you? Well, not really. No. Why? Just curious. Tell me, what is this bike of yours? A Botticelli, huh? Never heard of it. Are they mail order? Derek laughed. Mail order? I very much think not. They're actually very good. Really? I've never heard of them, so they can't be that good. Clearly not as good as our Trek Domain 5.9 with a Dura Ace setup. Oh, okay, said Derek as his opinion of Clayton crashed faster than a financial crisis. Deciding he had had enough, he stepped back as Reg began sniffing around Clayton. What are you doing? Clayton demanded with a sneer and hint of confusion. Reg straightened up. Have you got any chicken? Clayton looked completely lost. No, why? I like chasing chickens. I don't have any chickens, Clayton roared in anger. I sure only I can smell one. Inside his nasty little head, Clayton exploded with rage while Reg howled. Clayton was clearly lost. He had never met anyone like Reg before, and all he could think to do was pull out his toolkit and flick open an Allen key. I'll dismantle your bikes, he cried as he advanced towards them, just as Bernard fired off a ball bearing that passed within a millimeter of Clayton's nose. Clayton froze as Bernard reloaded his Barnett Diablo slingshot and took aim. The next one takes off your nose, Bernard hissed. Clayton sneered. This is not over, he whispered, and he ordered his team to mount their identical Trek bicycles. All the gear and no idea, mused Bernard. What an idiot, added Colin, while finishing off an ice cream. Months later, Zodiac appeared, full of joy. Is everything all right? He boomed. Not really. We just had an unfortunate encounter with Team All the Gear, said Derek. Zodiac screwed up his face, and his voice became serious. I'm sorry. They are here because of the administrator General Buck Wad. He wants them to beat you, and more importantly, me. Why? Said Austin. It's a long story, but I'm the first administrator that Mother Nature brought to the ledge. Bucks is technically my boss, but he hates the fact that I am the first, meaning I command the most respect, which I'm not at all that bothered about. So he wants to bring you down? Said Bernard. Well, basically, yes, and humiliate me. Is Bucks riding with the team? Zodiac laughed. I shouldn't think so. He doesn't know what a bike is. Just then, at that precise moment, Buck's Wad passed by on a Trek Domain 5.9 and sneered at Zodiac as he formed a group with Team Mulligear. However, I could be wrong. A shadow appeared as the perfect frame of Proton Handle Maker Smith made an entrance. Are you all set, Zodiac? Costello and I will be riding half an hour ahead of the pack to make sure the route is clear. Zodiac nodded. Teen Cogs and Clocks, this is my good friend Proton. Proton had muscles where they were already muscles across his tall, lean body, and blond hair fell to his shoulders. His big, round blue eyes acknowledged and greeted Teen Cogs and Clocks. Costello reappeared, and the jewels returned as Proton led her towards the start line. As the team watched, the fine figure of Costello disappeared out of view. Barry glanced at the sky. Looks like rain. I don't like rain. All right, we're going to stop there. We've been now reading for almost 45 minutes. And that leads us to the beginning of the race. Next time we'll do chapter 4, which is the race begins. And then we're going to go on to Chef's Hat. So you'll get a little bit of the beginning of the race to kind of see where they're going, places that they're going to be going through. And Chef's Hat is a really good one. Being a person, a chef in the Air Force, it's kind of like one of my favorites, that and Pirates, which I'm fortunate to be able to read. So that's it for today. I appreciate you being here. I hope you're enjoying these. This book is available on Amazon, so if you get the chance, go look it up, pick it up. You're not going to regret it. It's one of my favorite books that I've got, and I got a lot of them. So I enjoy this one more than I do any of my other ones, including my ones by, oh, I don't know, Robert Benchley and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's it for today. I really do appreciate you being here. Hey, if you get a chance, put a like down there or subscribe. And I will see you again on our next reading, which will be on Friday at 10 o'clock. So, in the meantime, be good and be good to yourself. Bye. Now I got to get up and get over there and turn this off. So, bye. Okay.